the entire work profile or the job description of the payroll professionals has to change. Rather than them focusing on the operational side of things, I see them acting more as an advisor in key decision-making, in strategic help. And somewhere, payroll professionals have not been invited to the board. I see them capturing the board seat as well with all this kind of vast information of data that they have and the kind of business sense that they can bring along.
Welcome to the Payroll Podcast with your host, Nick Day. Find out what it takes to truly discover what it takes to elevate your career within payroll as we meet with the industry leaders who are shaping the industry for tomorrow.
Hello and welcome back to the Payroll Podcast, and welcome to everyone across the globe, because today is Monday, the 6th of September, the beginning of National Payroll Week here in the UK. And to kick off the celebrations in style, I'm bringing to you all a fantastic guest to today's show. But before I reveal him all to you, let me introduce myself. My name is Nick Day, CEO of JGA Recruitment. We're a specialist global payroll recruitment firm, and I'm the host of this wonderful podcast, which you can find on iTunes, Spotify, and of course on every other podcast channel. It's also available on our own website, jgarecruitment.com. And if you haven't already subscribed, I implore you to do so. Please subscribe today. Your support is very much appreciated. Right, let me introduce you to today's guest, because today I am joined on the Payroll Podcast by Rohit Mathur, Head of HR Payroll Business Units for global payroll provider Ramco. Now, Rohit is an HCM payroll professional with over 20 years experience in payroll consulting, pre-sales, program management, business development, and more. He has successfully set up regional and global payroll operations from scratch for Ramco, who are very much a next-gen enterprise software player in the market. They're disrupting the world of global payroll, and we're going to be talking all about that during the course of this podcast. Now, with over 1,900 employees spread across 24,000 offices globally, Ramco are a business that are leading the way when it comes to leveraging AI and machine learning, two hot topics that are very much in the market at the minute being discussed within the payroll community. So I'm really keen to find out more about that during the course of this podcast as well. And of course, behold the future of payroll. It's National Payroll Week, right? So it's going to be driven by AI. It's going to be driven by machine learning. It's going to be driven by innovations. We've got powered chatbots now, which are answering payroll queries. We've got salary computation. We've got net pay anomaly detectors that are spotting problems in the payroll cycle. But Rohit is the expert when it comes to this subject. I'm going to bring him into the show. Rohit, how are you feeling? Tell us about AI and machine learning today.
Well, Nick, first of all, thanks for having me on your podcast. I'm a big fan of yours, and I think it's great to be here sharing the desk with you and sharing some of my learnings and experiences on this forum. So looking forward to a very interesting conversation today.
Me too. I'm super excited to have you on the show. So let's get stuck in, because there has been a lot of talk recently about AI, about machine learning in payroll. Not everyone necessarily is familiar with what those terms are, but it does appear, which is why I've invited you to this podcast today, very much so, that Ramco are at the cutting edge of this technology and innovation. I mean, you are already providing chatbot services, voice services, even facial recognition type services that all help improve the workforce management process and also to deliver a more compliant payroll service, not just in the UK, but globally. I believe you provide to over 50 countries worldwide already. So with all that going on, how much is truth? How much is generally this information and this technology helping the payroll process? How much of it is hype? And can you tell the audience a little bit more about what these solutions are and perhaps how they're benefiting the payroll process?
Nick, let me start by saying it's no more a sci-fi movie concept or a topic that used to be discussed in the academia circle. This is for real. And I guess if you look at AI and ML as a concept, it's right now getting adopted by various industries to improve the productivity and efficiency. And I guess payroll is no exception. I guess we have as many use cases to improve our productivity and efficiency using an AI. And it's a reality that you can't afford to ignore anymore. You can't afford to put it on the back burner. It's for here to stay. And I guess the sooner we realize how deeply it's getting ingrained in the automation, I think it'll be better for all the organizations that are looking for payroll transformation.
And also, a lot of these technologies innovations are about now improving the employee experience. And I think that's been a real shift in payroll. We've seen talent now being a driver for workforce productivity, being able to retain the best talent, be able to attract the best talent, which is obviously what I'm involved in, but also the payroll now a team now has a much bigger role to play in improving that employee experience. So can you talk a little bit about some of the innovations from a tech perspective that have come into the payroll cycle that are aimed at improving that employee engagement experience and that payroll cycle experience?
Let me start by commenting on your employee experience, which I think is something that's probably much more contextual today. Given the way the employee morale have to be boosted in today's time, they're all alone working from home, and it's exceedingly getting important that the employee experience is elevated. And I guess AI and ML come to a huge rescue out there. And it's not only from end user perspective, but also from professionals like us who are managing the payroll day in and day out. How does the employee experience there get elevated by using our AI and ML platform? Coming back, I guess the entire concept around employee experience to me, Nick, is the autonomy that you give to your employees in terms of their data and in terms of their processes. How much can they control? What's the kind of transparency or visibility do they have on their data? Do they have on their processes? Are they dependent too much on their help desk? Are they dependent on any third party to do their job? And I guess that's where we introduced a whole lot of features that aim to elevate the employee experience. And starting with, as you rightly pointed out, the virtual assistants, which we call as chatbots. And these chatbots are not only transactional, which means they can apply leave for you, they can pull up your payslip, but they're a lot more intelligent because they're learning from your patterns and they're trying to prompt you to take action. So a simple example could be if you don't turn up for office, the chatbot would prompt you to say you haven't applied for leave because you haven't reported to the office during your reporting time. Do you want me to apply leave for you? So it's more like prompting you. And then there is this intelligence angle that comes into the picture. So a simple example could be, I got my payslip and I'm not too sure how the entire payslip has been calculated because what I got last month looked very different than what I got this month. And the chatbot will help you understand after using the AI prowess or AI algorithms to say, hey, last month you bought some additional shares and hence the tax implication was different. Or your CPF looks different because you have moved into a different age bracket and hence the CPF computation looks very, very different. So it's trying to give you meaningful insights by analyzing the past patterns and the historical data that it's sitting on. Now let's move on to what we are calling as the personalization aspect, because as I said, to me, chatbots is more like a virtual assistant, which is much more intelligent. And apart from doing your transactional stuff, it's also helping you personalize a lot of things. So when you're using a system, and let me take a very simple example, like applying for your travel request. If I'm somebody who's traveling day in and day out from New York to Washington, why should I be filling that data again and again? And if my cost code is not changing, why should I sort of filling that data again and again? So that's how the system would try and learn your past pattern, saying that, okay, you've traveled to New York to Washington 5 times last month. Maybe that's the default that I should keep it for you. So it's trying to default a lot of data by personalizing the screens for you. Now come back to payroll professionals or people who are actually processing the payroll, Nick. What do I want to see? I really want to understand if at a preset level, based on my past patterns, the system can automatically trigger my payroll processing, saying that, okay, on 8th of every month, you have your cutoff and let me start the payroll preparation. It'll prompt you to say you start your payroll preparation on 8th. Do you want me to do that? Sure. When you start doing that, it'll automatically prompt people for the missing information. So 5 employees do not have their bank account details uploaded. It'll start triggering those emails, collect the information and run the payroll process for you. And all of this, imagine that you're able to monitor just like you would order food from Zomato or any food app, and you can see your food is getting prepared, your food is on the way, it'll hit you in next 15 minutes. All of that can be tracked by this bot, which we call a stock bot, by the way. for the payroll administrator. And the payroll administrator can clearly see that I would be able to process my entire payroll in next 1 hour. And right now, this is the status of my payroll. So many pay sets have been processed, or these are the missing informations for which the system is already asking for details from the relevant stakeholders. So that's how you would elevate the employee experience, both on the end employee side as well as the payroll administrator side, by employing intelligent virtual assistants.
Sure. It sounds like chatbot technology then has come on an awful long way. I remember when it first started being talked about, and it seemed very basic in its premise, but actually it seems to have evolved quite considerably. And actually, I remember doing podcasts talking about the interactive payslip, for example, but this is kind of taking it a step further, because it's not just the user clicking into the payslip to see what things are. You've actually got a virtual assistant, as you put it, telling you what these things mean and guiding you through the process. And I love that fast food type of process where actually you can log in and see it's being prepared. And I would guess, because there'll be some payroll professionals out there worried that these tasks are taking away from what they do, and is that a risk for them long term? My argument would be, just listening to what you were saying there, Rohit, would be that actually the one bit that you want payroll people focused on what they do best, which is processing and calculating payroll, right? So if the virtual assistant can take off some of the burden of the inquiries and the things that actually could be answered quite simply, then that allows them to spend more time doing what they do best, which is the payroll administrative side. Would you agree with that? Or actually, from your perspective, is the process side also to be automated and changed?
No, I completely agree with you, Nick. I don't think so. It's going to be an either or situation. It's not really a man versus machine the way it's made out to be.
Of course.
I would contend that AI is not going to replace humans. I think as decision makers, they're still going to be around. However, AI would be a faithful assistant, if I can call, which will be able to sort of take care of your repetitive task, proactively identify errors, frauds, and letting payroll teams do much more strategic and innovative job. And I guess somewhere I would tend to believe, Nick, that the entire job description of a payroll professional would be under a mega change. Rather than mundane operations on spending energies in operational tasks, I guess they'll be able to spend time on the bigger picture, able to contribute to the strategic and decision making capabilities of an organization. So no more, I think the job description would read that you need to process the payroll, you would need to reconcile the data, you need to issue the payslip, you need to answer the queries. I guess all of that can be done by your AI, ML, chatbots that you have deployed out there. However, I think the entire work pyramid of payroll professionals can be changed, or it can be it can be upside down, I would say, rather than having minimal strategic thinking or strategic actions. You would have much more of that to do.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And if you really look at Nick, they're sitting on huge information. They're sitting of such vast data that they can really help the organization to take a lot more informed decision, a lot more strategic thinking that they can sort of infuse. And simple examples could be, is my entire resource pyramid correct? Do I have more contractors? Am I paying much more overtime than I should be paying, or rather than I should be hiring a few new resources? Where should I hire? I mean, based on the cost that I'm incurring, what's the best location of hiring my employees as my next level of growth? Can I, in today's times, I think it's very important to also sort of predict, can I really predict if my employees are burning out? And how would you do that, Nick? I mean, you can probably look at the span of control of that employee, the kind of overtime hours that he's putting up. All of those are indicators for you to sort of analyze if at all some of your employees are nearing a burnout stage and you need to do something about it.
Sure. Mental health is
Absolutely.
a real subject right now, which needs addressing, particularly in the payroll community. We know, particularly during the pandemic, that many payroll professionals have worked so many hours. Let's not even try and put a number to it, because there's so many. And definitely the burnout is a concern. And I would argue as well that in the way that you've put it, which I quite liked, you talked about chatbots, and then you actually call it a virtual assistant. I don't think there are many payroll professionals out there right now that if you offered them a PA, it'll be a real person. So that if you would like a PA, we're going to fund it for you as a business to help you with those tasks. They would all, snap your arm off for it. They would love to have an assistant with them helping you. So I guess this is the same. It's just that if rather than a personal assistant, it's a virtual assistant. And if they can utilize the virtual assistant, as you say, to take off some of the tasks that they don't like doing or that are time consuming, so they can focus on that strategic element, then that has to be win-win. And I think you put that really nicely on that virtual assistant kind of view on it, which I think was really, really quite smart. But how does it differ then from some of the things you've talked about when we talk about AI and ML? How does that differ from classic RPA or robotic process automation, which we've heard an awful lot in the news about, maybe not as much now as it was a year ago, but even so, how does AI and ML differ from classic automation?
So, Nick, we started with that discussion. See, your normal automation or your normal RPA is all about taking your manual efforts out of tasks that are repetitive and predictable in nature, without any intelligence built into it. And if you look at a simple definition of automation is you sort of prescribe some set rules and the system would be able to remove the manual dependency and automate that. However, when you are using something like an AI, it's thinking and learning based on past patterns, is gathering and analyzing data, it's trying to find out outliers, and it's also trying to reason them. And if I can just lay it in a very, very simple terminology, Nick, it's almost the automation is like running a battery operated toy. It'll run, but the moment it has an obstacle, it'll tumble and it'll stop.
Okay.
Right. However, when you are using a toy which is AI and ML infused, it'll learn on what can cause such obstacles. It'll forewarn you to avoid those obstacles, and if in case you sort of run into them, what is the best way out? So, and all of that it's doing based on the experiences that it's got. Not to say that you have to commit mistakes from to learn it. You also have a whole lot of historical data that you can pump into your AI and ML engine, and it can automatically start learning from it. So I guess it's as simple between differentiating automation project and AI ML based project. If you bring it in the payroll context or payroll parlance, let me pick up an example around validation, Nick. If you just have your pay output for a particular month, you would generally want to compare it with last 2 months and say, okay, so many variances, but I don't know what to do with it. I mean, I got variances for 10 employees across 5 pay elements, and I don't know what happened. However, when I'm infusing it with the AI ML engine, it's going across the history and it's saying, okay, there are bonuses that get paid in some months, and hence there could be an aberration in few months. There could be, as I said, CPF that can be varying because somebody's age profile change, and hence there is a different CPF element attached to it. Or somebody has moved to a different tax zone, and hence their taxation is different. All of those reasoning, not only identifying the outlier, but also coming up with those reasoning is something that an AI ML based payroll engine can definitely bring to the table. So it's a lot more automation with intelligence and bringing in reason to it.
I know it makes total sense. So it can work both in harmony with automation, of course, which already people have there, but also actually could replace if it gets smarter as well. Should payroll professionals manage the ROI, the return on investment for AI and ML type solutions in the same way that we measure for automation? In automation, a simple calculation would be we used to take X amount of hours to deal with this task, and now with automation it takes minutes. So we can see that the calculation, the return on investment for us is we're saving this many hours, which correlates to this much money. Is it the same way that you should measure ROI for AI and ML type solutions? Was it different?
Yes and no, I would say, Nick, because definitely some of your basic parameters for measuring the productivity will certainly be the same. So how many FTEs are you taking to process your payroll, for example, would be one classic KPI to monitor your automation. However, I think the AI ventures into different direction where a lot more human dependency can be reduced. For example, help desk. I think we definitely needed people to answer queries which are sort of more analytical based, which are more intelligence based. However, all of that can be done by intelligent chatbots. And we've seen organizations going down on their help desk substantially by deploying intelligent virtual assistants like chatbots. However, the main KPI, if you really ask me, is the accuracy levels, because automation cannot guarantee very high accuracy levels of your payroll process, whereas an AI ML engine can guarantee that as well, which in turn, to me, looks like a reflection of your CSAT scores. How satisfied are your customers? So rather than saying, how efficiently am I running my payroll because of my accuracy and because of my timeliness, how effective are my CSAT scores? And then second part to that would be based on the employee experience that you are able to generate. What is your employee satisfaction level in an organization? So while you still keep your standard KPIs around FTE per payroll process, the kind of cost reduction that you can get, but I guess these are the soft factors in terms of the satisfaction levels of both your customers and employees, which definitely needs to be taken into account.
Well, I know it's something that Ramco takes seriously. And to give you a little bit of a plug, I know that in my research for this podcast, Ramco are recognized as a leader for the 4th consecutive year in the NEAT Matrix of Payroll Services by Nelson Hall research, which I thought was really interesting. But we're talking a lot about how tech can improve the payroll process. And you mentioned how it was really interesting, your visual reference of turning the pyramid upside down so that payroll professionals are doing less of the administrative tasks and more of the strategic. But there are going to be payroll people concerned about potentially the future of payroll as it gets more and more automated or smarter or intelligent or more technology that comes into the cycle. Are they going to be needed less? So if we're saying tomorrow that, a lot of these processes can be automated or changed or improved with machine learning and AI, what is the future role for payroll managers from your perspective? How do you see the future role of the payroll manager?
So Nick, as I said, I think the entire work profile or the job description of the payroll professionals has to change. Rather than them focusing on the operational side of things, I see them acting more as an advisor in key decision-making, in strategic help. And somewhere, payroll professionals have not been invited to the board. I see them capturing the board seat as well with all this kind of vast information of data that they have and the kind of business sense that they can bring along by some of the analysis that I just described to you, Nick.
Have you ever asked yourself, how can I recruit payroll staff effectively? Please don't give up on your recruitment project just yet. Here at JGA Payroll Recruitment, we appreciate the difficulties associated with attracting, recruiting, and retaining top payroll talent. We also understand just how costly a poor payroll hire can be. JGA Recruitment are a niche payroll recruitment agency who will partner with you to resource payroll candidates who will improve both the accuracy and efficiency of your payroll department. Contact us today on 01727 800 377 or visit jgarecruitment.com to find out more.
We've talked a little bit about AI and the employee experience as well. We've talked about how that can improve and how actually the role of the employee now is more central than ever. And although payroll is kind of transactional in nature, we now know that payroll touches every single employee in different ways, and it can add or even detract from the employee experience, productivity, attraction, retention, all of those things. We're seeing in the market, not just Ramco, but many, many payroll providers talking about different solutions and innovations that can improve that payroll cycle experience, can improve that employee experience. Can you tell us more about some of what those innovations are? Because, I'm seeing things in the news like touchless payroll, pay on demand. Which are the ones that the payroll manager should really be tuning into that can genuinely improve that employee experience? And which are the ones that you are most passionate about that you think really does deliver real results, I guess, to the employee engagement piece?
See, Nick, for a payroll professional, I think the key is to get their employees paid on time and accurately without any errors, right? So I think the major drive from my perspective for AI and ML is to ensure that the people are getting paid correctly on time and there are no accuracy issues out there. And that's where it starts from, where all you can improve the accuracy and remove the manual dependency on the payroll professionals. If you still look at it, while the organizations have a system, they still tend to rely or trust their employees for the reconciliation, for ensuring that whatever the system has generated is correct, and we haven't missed out any major areas out there. And that's where, Nick, we as an organization are focusing heavily on what we call as anomaly and reasoning engine, which not only identifies outliers, but is also trying to understand what led to those outliers. And in the report that they give to the payroll professionals, they would clearly say, you don't need to search the haystack. You just need to focus on these 15 employees who are showing a variance. And the variance is because of these possible reasons. Verify, and you're done with it. So that engine really helps us improve the entire cycle time as well as accuracy. And one of the data points that we have is one of our customers who had some 50,000 employees, had some 300 odd payments, and had multiple reports to validate the output, was taking almost close to 8 to 10 hours to get the entire validation complete.
Wow.
When we deployed our AI and ML engine, which is the anomaly and reasoning engine, the entire validation got finished within minutes. So there was a huge saving that one could see because of deploying an engine like that. The second part is around compliances. It's not only calculation, but also keeping a track of compliances, Nick. And from a compliance perspective, I guess the complexity on the statutory requirements is compounding. With the current context and the situation that we all are in, the employees are getting hired in any of the locations across the globe. They are operating from any location that they want. And I guess that's a norm that probably will set in, and it will put a whole lot of pressure on the regulation and compliance requirements. That's where we are also using the AI and ML engine to ensure that we don't miss out on any of those compliances. So for all the 50 countries that we support in, and for all the subject areas that we support from a compliance perspective, we have these AI-based web crawlers who are searching the entire internet for information pertaining to any changes that are happening in these 50 countries, and also trying to understand what are the kind of discussions that are happening on various forums for the interpretation of those changes. So proactively, we get to know what are those changes that are coming up and what impact possibly they could have on our payroll calculation. And that gets sort of fed in into our product roadmap. So that's from a compliance perspective. We also talked about employee experience, Nick, right from being a proactive and a intelligent virtual assistant, how it can also elevate the employee experience by answering some of the queries that they would typically call up the help desk and try and seek for it. So it's giving a lot more autonomy, a lot more power, a lot more transparency to the employees, and thereby elevating their entire employee experience. The last part that I thought I should touch upon is the entire, I would say, implementation cycle time. So Nick, when you have an AI engine that can learn from a lot of data, you would see when you are trying to implement a particular country for any of your customers, based on what you've done in the past for some of your other customers, you can come up with the recommendation that, okay, you are in Philippines and you are belonging to the services sector. These are the kind of leaves that are applicable. These are the kind of pay elements that are applicable. These are the kind of grouping that you need to do for your deductions or for your accruals. So the person who's implementing the payroll need not be an expert in that particular area to implement a very, very mature configuration out there. The system would prompt and help you based on the past usage that it has seen across customers in the relevant industry and the specific geography.
It's essentially very, very smart. Let's be honest, it's very smart. What I like, though, is the first answer you gave is bringing it back to what payroll's really about, which is paying employees accurately and on time and compliantly. And actually, we can talk about all the bells and whistles, which is great, but ultimately, the best employee experience is when they don't even know there's a payroll person behind the scenes doing anything at all. They just see their money come in, there's never anything wrong, and they're happy. That means there's a pretty good payroll experience in my view. So I love the fact that you brought it straight back to what's really important in payroll, which is paying people on time, accurately, and compliantly, which I think was a really smart way of answering, but obviously the intelligent software behind it is also incredible. So Rohit, I see that Ramco are a business that very much consider themselves as drivers of disruptive change within the global payroll market space. In fact, I read a brilliant recent white paper produced by Ramco, which was titled Reimagining Payroll in a Digital First World. For those listening, you can access that white paper by just clicking into our episode notes. I've got a direct link to that paper. It's well worth a read. But interestingly, in that paper, you talk about how businesses can really get much better value from payroll if they leverage next-gen disruptive technologies. And it talks a lot as well about advanced analytics and how they can really add value to the payroll profession. So if I'm a payroll professional reading this white paper and I want to get more immersed in advanced analytics, why can advanced analytics help the payroll professional, and how can they start that process, I guess, from a technological perspective?
Right. So I think, Nick, if you look at traditionally to understand the health of the business, you would look at P&L statements or balance sheet alone. But I guess there are a whole lot of crucial inputs that the payroll data can give you for making much more informed decisions. And I do believe the analytics on top of the payroll data can provide immense value to an organization. And I would want to break it into two parts on the kind of benefits or interpretation that one can have from analytics around payroll. The first part would be improving your operations itself first. And once you have so much of payroll data going on the cloud and the providers having a whole lot of information out there, it's providing real-time analytics around the benchmarking data. So as compared to your peers, what's your productivity level in terms of the employees that you are processing, total cost to process payroll, so on and so forth. So those are the kind of levers or data points that can help you fine-tune your operations based on the benchmark data that's available across the payroll providers. The second part is where you can aid the business to take effective decisions. And as we discussed, I think there are a whole lot of inferences that you can draw from your payroll data, right from is my resource pyramid correct? Do we have the right mix of employment types? Contingent labor, regular labor, full-time employees. And is there a correlation between the turnover rate of these multiple kind of employees, and do we need to do anything about it? Overtime data, again, a huge information base that you can sort of derive meaningful interpretation from. Should you hire new staff? Should you employ more of contractors to look at your immediate requirements? Can I predict the burnout levels? Are we having wage parity across the geos? I mean, it's very difficult to maintain it, but a constant check in an automated fashion around it to keep that wage parity in order, especially in times today when employee motivation is something that you can't afford to ignore, and can't have disgruntled employees who are talking about wage parities and things like that. And lastly, how are you doing on your compliance across the board? What's the kind of compliance misses or compliance penalties that you've got through as an organization, and what do you need to do about it? So I think there are various parameters, A, to improve your efficiency and productivity, B, to help your organizations take much more informed decisions. And all of that is possible because you have so much of data lying out there, and so many analytics too that can sort of sit on this data and give you this meaningful interpretation.
Sounds to me like there's probably a million other things you could do with it as well, because I put you on the spot there and you came up with about 20 solutions. But I guess to summarize that, really, it's an exciting time, I think, for the payroll manager, for the payroll professional, because as you say, we've turned that pyramid upside down. I'm stealing that from you, Rohit. And we're turning it on its head, and actually there's an opportunity now for payroll professionals to be really strategic, really getting knee deep into the payroll payroll data to help derive value from it that they can add and hopefully help elevate the payroll function to that board level, which I think it needs to get to, and we're making steps to get there, and technology is certainly helping with that process. My last question for you, Rohit, before we open the vault is, with everything we've discussed so far, what does the future of payroll look like from your perspective?
Well, this is a vision that we all share within our organization, is that you should not even know that you are processing the payroll for any organization till the time you get paid for it. That's the only time that you should know that you're processing the payroll. So everything should happen in background without any manual intervention, without anybody having to analyze a whole lot of things. And I think we are not far away from it, Nick. Right from the AI trying to trigger the payroll process on its own based on your past patterns, to helping you validate it properly, to helping your employee analyze the data properly and giving them meaningful information, helping them with their queries. It's a lot more touchless. So I think the routine payroll operations should go without any noise in a whole lot of automated manner. And I guess we need the payroll professionals to get the insights and steer the transformation or strategic direction of an organization.
Brilliant, fantastic. We're going to open the vault in just a second, but actually you made me think about something there. I spoke to a payroll manager quite recently, and there's a bit of a, we talk a lot about the big red button, the big button that employees that don't really understand payroll think that payroll professionals sit in an office and press a big button and everything gets done. And I know that people get upset about that because the payroll position is incredibly complex, and as we've discussed today, can be incredibly strategic as well. But interestingly, the payroll manager that I spoke to said, it's funny how people get upset about this button analogy, because ultimately, isn't that what we're striving towards? Don't we want to get to a point where actually we can just press a button and everything gets done, so that we can all focus on the strategic task, we can all focus on the value? And I'd never heard it turned on its head like that. This is a payroll individual that said, look, everyone's upset that everyone thinks this is what we do. This is where I want to get payroll to. I want to get payroll to the point where we just press a button, because then I can focus on all the strategic elements, all the value-added pieces, the employee engagement, the hybrid nature of the role that we do in terms of how it integrates with HR and tech and finance. And I thought that was a really interesting take that I think mirrors what you were just saying. And actually, maybe we should start embracing that button as something to come in the future. Maybe. I know that won't wash with everybody, but maybe that's something we should try and strive towards. We're not there yet for sure, but I thought what you said was really interesting. So we're going to open the vault.
Entering the vault.
Number one piece of advice you would give to someone working in payroll, Rohit, right now.
Embrace the change. Keep a track of what's happening around you. The change is coming at a very, very fast pace. And if we keep our eyes closed, we'll be in for a surprise. So I think it's very, very important for us to embrace the change and keep a very close track of what's happening around you in terms of the technology landscape. You need to be completely head on with it.
Fantastic. I'm going to quote one of my favorite films, Ferris Bueller's Day Off, where he says, life moves pretty fast. If you close your eyes for just a second or you blink, you'll miss it. So you've got to stay right on top of it, which I think is fantastic. Question 2, if you could get the entire global payroll industry to adopt just one AI or ML improvement right now, what would it be and why?
I guess validations. And as I said, the bottom line for all payroll professionals is to make sure that employees are getting paid accurately, correctly, and on time. And I guess validation and anomaly engine, which can help you eradicate a whole lot of errors, is one big thing that I would want to bet on, and how we can sort of take that to a whole lot of maturity stage, so that there are no errors, no misses, and no compliance gaps when we are paying to our employees.
Fantastic. Well, I should add that Ramco do have a validation detector, don't you? It's something that you provide as a service, which I think is excellent.
Absolutely.
That incorporates that.
Absolutely.
And last but not least, we've kind of touched upon this a little bit in the podcast. I'm going to ask the question anyway. If you could describe the payroll market space in 2025, we're not that far away, but as we say, technology moves really fast. So 3.5 years from now, 2025, what would it look like?
Well, I think I would definitely want to buy the argument of your red button. Definitely all the mundane and repetitive tasks can definitely be smoothened, ironed out with the use of technologies. And I guess we might be focusing much more on an ecosystem around payroll rather than just doing payroll processing. I would be more inclined to see how can I help my employees plan their financials. Nice. How can I help my employees get their payment whenever they want? Why should I be waiting for a particular frequency to happen? If I've earned it, I might want to get paid within the 2 days of my earning of that pay check. So I guess how I can look at their demands and then adjust the pay accordingly. How can I have other peripheral ecosystem partners that can help the entire value chain, right from financial wellness to on-demand pay to a beautiful employee experience. I guess the focus of all the payroll professionals probably would be creating that ecosystem and leaving the systems to do the operation task.
I think you've summed that up and actually brought the whole podcast full circle brilliantly. You talked about employee experience, value, mental health, financial wellness, the whole holistic process of payroll coming together in an ecosystem. I think it's a fantastic way to end what has been a really fascinating and interesting conversation today, Rohit. Thank you so much for joining me today on the Payroll Podcast. If people are interested in finding out more about Ramco, or indeed if they want to connect with yourself, where can I direct them?
They can just drop us a mail at contact@ramco.com, Nick.
Fantastic. I will, of course, put the website in the episode notes. If you want to find out more about Ramco, please go to the episode notes. You can find their website there. You can request a demo if you're interested in the software. You can connect with Rohit on LinkedIn. And, of course, you can read that wonderful white paper, which is well worth the read, straight through the episode notes. So please do check those sites out. They are fantastic. And, of course, please remember, if you have a global payroll-related vacancy that you need some support with, give myself a call, give one of my team a call. You can get me at nick@jjrecruitment.com or call the team on 01727 800 377. Just leaves me to say a huge thank you, Rohit from Ramco, for joining me today on what has been a fascinating payroll podcast for the start of National Payroll Week. It's a celebration here, so it's wonderful that you've been able to join me, Rohit. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Nick, for having me here. It was a fantastic session that I thoroughly enjoyed, and I'm looking forward to many more along with you, Nick.
Me too. My absolute pleasure. Thank you, Rohit. All the best.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much for tuning into the Payroll Podcast with Nick Day of JGA Recruitment. If you need help with a current payroll vacancy, then please get in touch with Nick and his team. All contact details can be found in the episode notes. In the meantime, to make sure you never miss a future episode, please subscribe to the show through any of your favourite podcast channels. Till next time.